Hey, it's Ubu, and today I'm going to be talking about the video game to film adaptation of The Mortuary Assistant, which is based on the video game released August 2nd, 2022, developed by Darkstone Digital, aka Brian Clark, and published by DreadXP. The movie released in theaters February 13th, 2026, but it just recently released on streaming on Shudder March 27th, which is where I watched it. This review is from the perspective of someone who has played around 10 hours of the video game, which I'm an avid enjoyer of. It's one of the scariest games I've played personally. It's a unique and well-crafted game that I highly recommend you try for yourself. Keep in mind these are just my opinions. If you disagree with any of my critiques today, that's totally okay, and of course I'd love to hear your perspective in the comments below. All I ask is that you do so respectfully. I want to give a very minor plot spoiler warning for both the game and the movie. I will only be touching on very minute details regarding some of the characters, but I will be avoiding major spoilers altogether, because I really want you to play the game and watch the film for yourself. And as I talk about the movie, I will make a few comparisons to what we experienced in the game and how that's reflected in the movie itself, but only when it's necessary. With all that out of the way, now it's time for my review of The Mortuary Assistant. I'm sorry if I butcher these names, but the film was directed by Jeremiah Kipp, produced by Brian Clark, along with several other credited producers, written by Tracy Biba and Brian Clark, and the film stars Willa Holland, Paul Sparks, Keena Ferguson-Fraser, John Adams, and Emily Bennett. The movie follows Rebecca Owens, a mortuary science graduate who takes a night job at Riverfields Mortuary. What begins as a routine job soon turns sinister as she faces terrifying supernatural forces. Starting with the cinematography, this movie makes a strong first impression right out of the gate with its camera work, set design, and visceral practical effects. It did a really good job of hooking me in and keeping my attention. I even found myself scanning every scene in case someone or something was hiding in plain sight. Initially, I was impressed with its visual presentation. I felt immersed as well, as it was building a strong sense of unease. However, as the movie continued, especially at about the 2/3 mark, the cinematography becomes much more chaotic and with an almost frantic approach to the editing. You could argue that this approach is to reflect what's currently ongoing in regards to the plot. I just found that it clashed with the previously established tone and pacing, and I'll expand more upon that as we go. Of course, I acknowledge and understand that condensing a video game that could take several hours to fully experience is no small feat, but I believe if they were able to show a bit more restraint and carry that steady, uneasy feeling throughout, that it could have culminated into a more cohesive experience. Now, in regards to the music, the atmosphere, and the overall tone of the film, I thought that the music used throughout the movie was actually pretty solid. It felt appropriate and fit the mood very well. Since I have played the game quite a bit, hearing the game's theme song playing was a welcome addition, and I'm glad that they didn't overuse it. Overall, I would say that the music did a great job at supporting the ambience and establishing a sense of dread, especially in the first act. Now onto the plot and the performances. Like I mentioned previously, the movie follows Rebecca Owens, a mortuary science graduate who takes a night job at Riverfields Mortuary. What begins as a routine job soon turns sinister as she faces terrifying supernatural forces. The movie opens with Rebecca Owens, played by Willa Holland, as she's embalming a body as part of her internship at Riverfields Mortuary. As she does so, Raymond Delver, played by Paul Sparks, is observing and grading her work. I found this to be an effective opening sequence, with its super close shots of the embalming process, as well as introducing our two main characters. I thought the performances given by Willa, Paul, and the rest of the cast were pretty solid for the most part. If you haven't played the game, you'll be missing some context on why Raymond is presented as such a serious and deadpan character. However, there are a few performances that occurred later on that felt a little awkward, a little over the top, and just didn't land for me. And you can probably tell by now, a lot of my critiques occur as we progress further away from the opening act. Rebecca is a recovering addict, in both the game and in the movie. It's established that she has been sober for 1 year when she receives her sobriety coin. I really like this scene as she gives a speech about her struggles with addiction, and I thought it was well written. We also get to briefly meet Rebecca's grandmother afterwards, who appears in the video game, but she is not introduced in this setting. I believe the duality of struggling with addiction and the supernatural forces Rebecca encounters throughout the movie is a strong foundation for the story, and I think it works quite well, even though there are some things that aren't included from the game, such as Rebecca's mother. There is more to the story, but I'm going to move on as to not spoil the rest of it for you. Overall, I think the story translating from the game to the movie itself was effective, especially since the game has multiple endings. I was concerned about how they would implement the multiple endings we see in the game. It could have easily felt disjointed or even jarring, but I believe they were able to blend them together in a cohesive manner. Now onto my biggest critique involving the plot and maybe even the movie as a whole, the pacing and introduction of the rules. Without going into too much detail, the turning point of this movie for me is not long after the scene celebrating Rebecca's first year of sobriety. After encountering the aforementioned supernatural forces, Raymond instructs Rebecca on what she needs to do to confront them, which is almost immediately interrupted. While I appreciate them avoiding an exposition dump, I believe the introduction of these rules could have been established at a slower and more natural pace. Ironically, from that point on, the movie insists on throwing everything it has at you with reckless abandon. So why not just give us the exposition dump anyways? Overlaying scenes of Rebecca doing these tasks as they're explained could have been a more effective way to show while also telling the audience of what's expected of her. To be fair, we do get to see Rebecca piece things together herself, but in conjunction with the remaining runtime, it felt as though this segment of the movie was rushed. These tasks are crucial and extremely important to not just the plot of the game, but also the gameplay loop. So this approach left me wishing the movie gave this key aspect more time to breathe. I would have preferred an approach that allowed Rebecca to familiarize herself over time, rather than cramming everything into a singular night. In addition, I would have liked to see Rebecca embalm more bodies over the course of several nights, essentially giving Rebecca a moment for trial and error as she learns these new rules regarding the embalming process. This change could have gone a long way to continue building upon the initially established tone, while also giving more time to build tension. In closing, even for someone who is well versed on the game, the adaptation of the Mortuary Assistant is an enjoyable experience, even with its flaws. I was immediately hooked by its opening sequence, paired with a strong atmosphere, and elevated by the score. It undoubtedly made for a promising first impression. Additionally, as an avid enjoyer of the game, I really appreciate how they included music, sound effects, and even entities in the movie, as well as combining some of the different endings effectively. However, it suffers from a rushed third act, which negatively impacted the pacing and key aspects of the plot, as well as a sprinkle of some over-the-top performances. So even with measured expectations, I found these issues to hold back what could have been a more cohesive and immersive experience. And one more thing before I go, Brian Clark's next project is a video game called Paranormal Activity Threshold. A demo for the game was recently showcased at PAX East, which I didn't attend personally, but the game does have a Steam page. I'll have a link to that in the pinned comment below if you'd like to check it out for yourself, and don't forget to wishlist the game to show your support. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Are you someone who has played the game before watching this movie? Have you not played the game and still plan on seeing this? And if you have seen it, what did you think about it? I'd like to hear what you have to say. We'll have links to the Mortuary Assistant game in the pinned comment below, as well as the developer's next upcoming project, Paranormal Activity Threshold. So go check those out. And if you'd like to support my channel, hit subscribe, leave a like, comment, and share the video. I would greatly appreciate that. And I thank you for watching my video. I hope you have a wonderful day. I think that's all I have to say about it. So thanks for hanging out with me. But don't forget,